If you are thinking about purchasing a storm shelter, building a storm shelter, there's probably some things you need to think about, or at least need to know before you get going. Let's talk about it. First thing you got to understand is, as I sit here in our storm shelter, they're not like what you see on TV, where they're like being in your living room. They're dark. We have a single light bulb in ours. They're damp year round. And by damp, I mean, well, there's just condensation. It'll be 100 degrees outside. Still might be 60 degrees in your shelter. Or vice versa. It could be warm in your shelter, not 100 degrees, but warmer. And then you get a sudden cold front, all of a sudden your walls condensate. And so it's always damp in here. I can't help but laugh when I see people say, well, we're going to spend, the zombie apocalypse in our shelter. You don't want to spend any more time in this shelter than you absolutely have to because of temperature, dampness, and all these other things. If your shelter is not built properly, you could even have critters in here. We don't have that problem, but you could. So what's our plan? Should we have another tornado? By the way, we have tornado season about 10 months out of the year. And we lose everything. Well, our plan is to have just enough stuff in here in plastic totes, as you can see behind me, so that we can sustain ourselves until help arrives, i.e. the rest of the family, or until we can figure out what needs to happen next. Worst case, we want to try to hang on for at least a week or so. There's a couple different kinds of storm shelters, at least that we had. There is all the ones that I looked at are below ground. The above ground ones just seem, I'm sure they're safe and thoroughly tested and all that, but I really don't want to be in another above ground facility when an EF5 tornado blows through. I want to be under the ground, and so that's where I'm at. The shelter we have is built into a hill, which just happens to be about, 50 to 100 feet from our back door, so we can turn around and run if we have to get in here. Most of the time you have more than enough warning, though. We looked at ones that were you could put in a garage. A little concerned about, the house falling down on top of it, not being able to get out, so we didn't go that route. And ones that you bury in your backyard and just has a hatch, and you just pick the hatch up and you go straight down. Now, that one had one major thing that I did not like. It had a relatively steep set of stairs to get down in, depending on how big you wanted to go. We wanted one that would hold at least 8 people, just in case. And in order to have that, those stairs were pretty steep. If there's a tornado coming and you've got, say, 4, 5, 6, 8 people trying to go down those very, very steep steps at the same time, including younger grandchildren, I thought that might be problematic, so we didn't go that direction either. But what we got is, I think it's about 16 feet long. It's about 10 feet wide. It's a concrete bunker-looking thing that they actually came out and installed in our backyard in the middle of a hill. And basically we run up to the door, open up, go in, close the door, and this door is a heavy, heavy steel door. We have 2 chambers. We've got an outer chamber and an inner chamber. The inner chamber is where the actual storm shelter is, and the door and the structure of this inner chamber is, it's pretty serious. The outer chamber, it's built more for aesthetics. I didn't really like the idea of having, a big metal steel door sticking out in the middle of the yard that I had to look at all the time, so we did a little bit of cosmetic work. Now, when we have a tornado, and like I said before, we have a lot of them. Matter of fact, today is early April, and we've had several severe thunderstorms and tornado watches and warnings. But when we have one, the feeling that you get when you come in this shelter of, the world's ending outside, but I'm going to sit here and play on my phone, is okay. Especially when the grandkids are here. When you have younger grandchildren, we have some toys and stuff in here in totes, again, because of the moisture. We bring them in here, we ride it out, and as much as you like to think tornadoes last for hours, most of the time They don't last that long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. We've been in here for a couple hours at a time, but mostly they don't last that long. How do we know when to get in the shelter? Well, we have numerous weather apps which give us warnings on our phone. We also have a weather radio for the house that the alarms go off when there's some sort of major weather event. But which weather event do we key on to go to the shelter? Well, obviously, tornado events, warnings in particular. But we also go to the shelter in severe thunderstorm warnings. Why? Because the worst tornado we ever had here, which took out barns and the roof of the house and everything else, was a severe thunderstorm warning. Now, I live far enough out that you really can't hear tornado sirens. Covington has some, and occasionally if the wind's blowing right, we can hear it. But for instance, last summer's tornado in Covington that took out about half the town, we never heard those sirens. We got you get a pretty serious warning on your phone, take shelter now kind of thing. And we were already in the shelter at that point. But it makes for an interesting, let's just say, moment when it's time to go to the shelter. Obviously, we bring all the adults, children, and anybody else that's in the house. We also bring our pets. We have a English bulldog, and she knows exactly what to do when we head this direction. She's got a little bed in here, and she'll sit around until it's time to go back. She's basically bored silly as the world ends outside. Cost? Storm shelters are not cheap. Whether you build it or whether you buy it, you're going to put some money in it. Just understand that your life rides on this thing. So if you're going to be cheap and buy something that may be, let's just say, substandard, not tested, all these other things, you might rethink that. One of the biggest problems we're having is when you go inside and close that big metal steel door I was talking about, you have absolutely no Wi-Fi conductivity. We have fiber optics out here in the middle of nowhere, believe it or not. Thank you, President Trump. But it means that a lot of times if the tornado is not close or we don't think it's close, we have to leave the doors open to keep an eye on the radar, which is a major drawback. If anybody's got any better ideas on how to handle that, drop me a line or put something in the comments below. And maybe you've got a better idea what you do. If you have any questions about storm shelters, let me know. It's certainly been interesting. We've had this one for about 10 years. If you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. Until next time, I'll see you down at the barn, or in this case, the storm shelter.